Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tim Jensen with the Contra Costa County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. We're glad that you chose to join us today, and we look forward to your assistance in developing a comprehensive Walnut Creek Watershed restoration plan. We already have a team leading this effort, but we would love to have your help. The purpose of our meeting today is to let you know about this effort, how you can join us, and to get your input to us. This session is being recorded so you can be shared with other interested groups. Also, we're using the Q&A feature instead of the chat, so feel free to send us your questions and comments, and we'll try to address them before we conclude the meeting. Next slide, please. Our panelists today are myself, Sarah Duckler, with the Contra Costa Flood Control District, and Claudia Gemberling. She works closely with us. She's with the County Public Works Department. Also, we have Bob Simmons with the Walnut Creek Watershed Council, Lisa Damerel, Contra Costa Resource Conservation District, and Ken Schwartz and Emma White with Montrose Environmental. Thank you all for being panelists today. And now we're ready to launch our session, and I'd like to turn it over to Claudia Gemberling. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. The purpose of this meeting is informational, to provide you with a general overview of this new plan under development and to receive your input early in the plan development process. Please feel free to submit your questions. We will have a dedicated time for answering questions at the end of the presentation, and we'll answer them throughout when we are able. We will have a couple of interactive polls throughout this meeting. Your feedback is greatly appreciated and will help us in our plan development. Please note the meeting is being recorded. So the purpose of the plan is to meet the purpose of the procedures for discharges of dredge or fill material to the waters of the state. We are trying to prepare a plan that will identify opportunities to improve the watershed's health, including water quality, habitat, flood management, and natural resources. Contra Costa County Flood Control District and the Contra Costa Resource Conservation District and Walnut Creek Watershed Council and creek steward groups are working together in a collaborative approach. This plan will support the Regional Water Quality Control Board requirement to develop holistic and integrated restoration projects, which will help with future mitigation opportunities where project impacts require from the Regional Water Quality Control Board have mitigation requirements. Next slide.
Okay, hi, I'm Sarah Duckler with the Contra Costa County Flood Control and Water Conservation District. So we just wanted to take a moment to make sure that we're all situated with respect to the watershed, its location. So most of us are oriented to our landscape based on freeways rather than creeks. So this shows us the location of the Walnut Creek watershed, that dark gray area in the middle of your screen. And you can see that pink line going up through the middle of it is Highway 680. So that kind of runs right through the middle of the Walnut Creek watershed as it drains both sides of the valley, which we'll see in the next slide. And then Highway 24 is coming in the orange. So the interchange 680-24 is really right in the middle of the Walnut Creek watershed, just so that you know where you are. Take a look at how big that watershed is. It's huge. It's larger than the city and county of San Francisco. It's a really big landscape feature. And then it drains out towards the north into Sassoon Bay, which is kind of right at the border between the saltwater San Francisco Bay and the freshwater delta coming in. So just so that you're situated as to where the watershed is. Let's go to the next slide. Again, I don't have the highlighter, but you can see Walnut Creek is the sort of grayish blue. This is the outline of Contra Costa County and all of the major watersheds in the county. And of course, Walnut Creek Watershed is the largest watershed in our county and pretty much runs right up through the center geographically of the county, but it's running between the two ranges. Let's go to the next slide where you can see that more clearly. Again, here's our familiar highways and this landscape view. You can see the black outline for the entire Walnut Creek watershed, and it pretty much runs on the west side from Lafayette. The east side, it takes in part of the flanks of Mount Diablo, and then all the way to the south at the northern edge of the city of San Ramon. So you can see the blue creeks that drain those various hills and mountains down to the valley floor to the main stem of Walnut Creek. There are a lot of smaller creeks and tributaries in the watershed. The flood control district is responsible for some of the larger channels that are typically larger channels through the urban areas that have been modified over the decades to provide for flood protection, or for protection of the creek itself during high flow events. So there are things like modified channels in earth, some concrete channels, there are drop structures, there are detention basins that all kind of work together to provide for the flood protection of the creek. But as part of our planning process, we're going to be looking at the creeks and the flood control facilities, looking for opportunities to improve the health and the function of the watershed. We're working closely with the Walnut Creek Watershed Council, and I'm going to hand this over to Bob Simmons of the council to talk more about that organization and how they're working on the ground. Next slide.
Good afternoon. I am president of the Walnut Creek Watershed Council. We started meeting informally about almost 15 years ago with some representatives of the Flood Control District and others. And in 2021, we incorporated as a 501c3 because we were looking towards the future and felt we needed to have an organization that could be taken forward. So we have a board, a 6-member board, but 5 of the members are representatives of each of the 5 creek groups, the major tributary creeks to Walnut Creek. And we have the logos for each of them. We have the Friends of Pleasant Hill Creeks, also the Lafayette Creek Committee, which is sort of a little different organization because it's not a friends group, but Lafayette, the city of Lafayette has had a Creeks Committee for a long time. We have the Friends of Concord Creeks, which is our newest creek organization, and the Friends of the Creeks, which happens to be the one that was organized first a long time ago. And then lastly, we have the Friends of San Ramon Creek. And they're each doing different things to help restore the watershed. We meet as a board pretty much once a month, and then every other month we also have a full council meeting where we usually bring in a speaker and talk about some various things. And we've been talking about working towards a restoration plan for quite a while. And in the beginning of last year, we created what's called a steering committee and started that process. So we're really excited about today and what we're doing now and what we're introducing and are working together with both the Flood Control District and the Resource Conservation District. Next slide.
So we actually have a quick poll for everybody just to get a sense of who is in attendance today. I'm going to go ahead and launch that really quickly. All right. So here is just a quick poll. So please go ahead and feel free to answer just to give us a better sense of who is here today.
And there are 2 questions in the poll. So if you don't see the second question, just scroll down. You'll see the second.
Yes, thank you, Ken. Awesome. We'll give it a few more seconds here. Looks like almost everybody has had a chance to participate. All right, I'll go ahead and end the poll. Oh, we're still getting a couple of responses. Okay. All right, and then we're going to share the results just so we can all get a sense of who's here and who the fellow attendees are of the meeting. All right. Looks like we have about 42% of attendees from public agencies, 16% from special districts, 6% from cities and towns. We have some folks from nonprofits, community organizations, and then other groups. Awesome. So quite a wide range of people here today. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and hand the slideshow back over.
Thanks, Emma. Hi, everyone. Ken Schwartz here from Montrose Environmental. Emma and I are consultants assisting the county and our other partners here from the RCD and the Watershed Council, helping develop the plan. So just a few words about developing this plan. And this is kind of a staircase with several steps here. And you may not be able to see all the details, but it starts with collecting reference material. You know, there's a lot of good ideas already out there about project ideas and concepts that are already existing in the watershed, have been thought through for several years. So we want to start by understanding what's been done, because there are many good ideas that are out there. And we need to collect GIS information related to the location and attributes of such ideas or opportunities. And along the way, you know, we're not only just kind of trying to collect what's been said or done before, but part of the process here is to collect new ideas. And that's very much part of this meeting here, is to get the word out. And we'll be talking to people over the coming months to get new ideas and make sure that people feel engaged and that they have a voice in this process. Well, anyway, as we collect this information, we're also going to be looking at different criteria to help compare and evaluate different potential projects or opportunities. And one word about that is, you know, sometimes something is really pretty well conceived. It's maybe even up to the point of design. It's got a location, it has funding, CEQA's been done. That's a really thought through project. Other times, people have maybe just a good idea or a concept, and it's not quite fully fleshed out, but it's something that, you know, we could work with. I think our collective goal in developing this plan is that we keep an open mind to all these types of opportunities. Some things are going to be further along, some things may be new ideas, and sometimes a new idea today is a project, you know, down the road. So we'll be collecting these ideas. We'll be, you know, meeting with stakeholders, and along the way, we're going to draft an outline and draft a plan. And we look forward to coming back and to sharing the plan with the community to get additional input and feedback. So to summarize, just in this arrow graphic here, the core of this plan is to identify opportunities, whether those are projects or concepts, evaluate those, maybe collect additional information out there, prioritize them, and then publish a plan that people can refer to. So with that, I'm going to turn it over now to Claudia, who's going to start by describing what a potential project looks like or is, and we're going to go through a few of these projects. Thank you. Hey, Claudia, we can't hear you.
All right, I just unmuted myself. Thank you. So we have already done this for one of our Contra Costa County Public Works Department projects. It was the replacement of Marsh Drive Bridge a few years ago, and we had impacts to seasonal wetlands and freshwater marsh and the waterway. With that, we had mitigation requirements from the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Regional Water Quality Control Board. We did not have enough. It looks like we have plenty of space to do on-site mitigation, but we had challenges with right-of-way, et cetera, and with the city of Concord is on one side. So it was just a little bit, it was challenging to try to get the on-site mitigation. So we worked with the Walnut Creek Watershed Council, Bob Simmons, to do offsite mitigation. And fortunately, Bob he's knowledgeable of the areas that could use mitigation, and because he's already established agreements with other entities. And so one location is on Walnut Creek behind the Civic Center Park, and the other Lafayette Creek, just across I'm not quite sure exactly where it's at, but downtown Walnut Creek, or near downtown. And so we were able to offset the impacts with removal of invasive species and planting them with native plants, creeping wild rye, etc. And you can go on to the next page, next screen, please, to show the before and after. So I thought this was a great resolution to the mitigation we had to do, and it's easier if there's banks out there, right? But in this case, or I say in this case, but in general, it's hard to find mitigation banks. So this approach would be it's benefiting in many ways. You know, we're addressing our mitigation requirements as well as bringing community members together to restore areas and just really enhancing and beautifying our creeks and with native vegetation. So right here, this is a project where has been done and I say restoration project, where this watershed plan that's the goal, is to identify those areas within the Walnut Creek watershed where we can, as we move forward and find out what the needs are, whether it be from the community or agencies needing mitigation requirements, areas to choose from, and see what's most fitting for the issue at hand. Next slide. And I'll kick it over to Bob Simmons. Whoops, you're on mute.
I like to comment on this slide for two different things. And one, I'll have to just follow up a little bit on what Claudia said. Since about 2019, the Water Board has been mentioning the Walnut Creek Watershed Council to developers and the municipalities when they've needed offsite mitigation. And we've worked with the Water Board and the other entities to identify sites. And it's been a challenge sort of matching sites with needs. And I think one of the purposes of what we're doing now is to try to build a portfolio of projects so that there's more opportunity identified, more chances to find a site that really fits well, which is why we want to have a very robust plan. This project is interesting because it is a project that the city of Lafayette took up a requirement to treat water running off a road into the creek and created something really positive with it through the advocacy of the Lafayette Creeks Committee. But I think part of the reason was they saw the other things that we're doing for watershed restoration, and they saw this as an opportunity to make something really that benefited, accomplished the goal of what they needed to do, but also made something that was really valuable for the community. And it was just really relatively recently completed, and you can go visit it. It's very nice. So, and we're really pleased with it because to me, it shows that if we start thinking about restoration, hopefully the municipalities and the other entities will think of how they can actually support restoration going forward. Next slide, please. So the first three slides were of things that were ongoing. This is one of a potential. Back around 2015, a willow tree fell and caused the water to be diverted, and was diverted towards an existing park, Osage Park. And it didn't happen right away, but over the period of a series of years and storms, the diverted creek started cutting into Osage Park. And so the Friends of San Ramon Creek have identified this as an area that they would like to do some restoration work to restore the stream bank and provide some adjacent habitat. There's still some Arundodonts, an invasive species in the area. We being the council, have identified over 300 stands of that invasive species. That is not only a fire risk, but it diverts water, so it creates a flood problem if you see a large stand, as you do along many of the creeks in the area. And so we're working on this one. So next slide, please. So sometimes when you look at something, you don't really think about the opportunities, but one of the things the Water Board is very, very much interested in, as well as CDF&W, is daylighting of buried creeks. And, over the last 70 years, as we built our communities, a lot of times we just sort of buried the creeks and put them out of sight so we didn't have to worry about them. And, that was just part of the process. But now we see that the population is more interested in daylighting creeks and creating wetlands. And this is a private property. It's a church property. They have more parking than they need. And so they were sort of thinking about, well, what can we do with this? And the culvert on the right is the size of the culvert that goes underneath that parking lot diagonally towards that row of trees. And so it represents a really significant opportunity, not only to daylight the creek, but this is a low spot on the left side where the car is. You could also create a small wetland, and it would just really benefit the whole area, and the property owners support it. So that's working with private property owners presents more opportunities for us to talk about creeks and creek values and wetland values. So this is one still, it's at the idea stage. We know of it, and we just have to do a lot of work to make it happen. Next slide. I think I pass it off here. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Lisa Damerel here with the Resource Conservation District. I am going to move into talking a little bit about how the plan will benefit everyone here, and also just why we wanted to talk to you today. So one of the main points that we want to make is that the plan will benefit from both public agency and stakeholder input, because it'll make the plan more complete and robust. And we want to include areas and opportunities that we may not already know about. But we also want to express that the agencies, cities, tribes, and other groups can benefit from having projects they're sponsoring or funding or implementing or even just thinking about in the plan, because having the project in the plan, like in a plan like this one, can help you gain project momentum. It can help you find funding. And it's also important to note that the opportunities and projects included in the plan may also be good candidates for needed mitigation. So if you have mitigation that you need to do, this might be a good opportunity, as Claudia already referred to. The partnerships involved here can reflect different interests and multiple objectives. So as was demonstrated by the example projects that were presented a little bit earlier, the restoration projects can benefit from and bolster mutually beneficial partnerships. And these partnerships, in addition to providing opportunities to build community networks, can help ensure that different interests are represented and multiple objectives are achieved. And so, finally, there's been a really good track record of project partnerships in the Walnut Creek watershed. And in addition to the fact that this planning effort has already been a really positive partnership between agencies, a nonprofit organization, and several community organizations and consultants, we're really encouraged by the excellent track record in the Walnut Creek watershed, because a lot of projects have been accomplished through those partnerships. And as another example of this, just looking at this photo on the right of the slide, it shows volunteers planting native plants at an annual flood control district funded event along the Clayton Valley Drain. And the people in the photo include 2 Concord City Council members, the president of the Restoration Trust, and volunteers from a few different Friends of Creek groups. So just an example of how these types of restoration projects really do benefit the land, our waterways, and the community. Next slide, please. So we really want to hear your ideas, and we would really appreciate it if you would share with us your needs, and these needs might include mitigation needs, or challenges you're facing, having to do with riparian erosion or vegetation or water quality or any of the other issues that we've kind of touched upon in this presentation so far. We want to hear your project ideas and concepts. We'd love to hear these, and including also if it's just a location that you're thinking about, and also ideas for partnerships that could help us all get projects accomplished. And then we also know that you have invaluable knowledge of the geography, infrastructure, and natural resources in the area that you have your expertise in. So we'd really like to hear your perspectives on potential improvements or solutions for the types of challenges that we're facing, and that we've discussed earlier. We would also appreciate hearing about any funding ideas you may have. This includes grants and other fundraising ideas for the future, but it also includes ways that you may have funded or assisted with restoration projects in the past, because we can learn from those lessons. And then ideas for project implementation support and watershed monitoring support. The information that you have about waterways in your city or your jurisdiction could be very helpful for project implementation planning and for ensuring that the implemented restoration projects are successful in the long term. The ideas that you share can help guide the restoration activities in the Walnut Creek watershed for the next 20 to 30 years. So it's really an opportunity to have a lot of impact. So I think we're gonna now do another poll. And so this is just for our information so that we know moving forward whether we can reach out to you or if you have ideas. So we'd appreciate it if you could go ahead and answer the poll. It has 3 questions. Thank you. About halfway there. All right, last couple of seconds. Whenever you're ready, Emma, feel free to close that poll. And then I will pass it on to Ken.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Emma, we can advance the slide here, but while I do, I don't know if folks can see the results, but several people have ideas that they want to share with us, so that's terrific. And everyone wants to come on a field tour, so that's great too. So stay tuned, and we'll be following up with you on that. So just a couple words here about where we're going from here. You know, this really is our first kind of public foray, kind of getting the word out there about this. And this winter will be, again, as I described earlier, we're going to be collecting reference materials, reaching out to folks, developing the plan criteria, and then kind of taking that into the spring and actually going out and looking on the ground at and assessing opportunities, sites for their opportunities to be part of the plan, developing a plan outline at the same time as we kind of collect and sift this information. And then it's kind of developing the plan and reviewing the plan and refining the plan. Click, Emma, the next one. An important part of this process there is that little animation, which is the stakeholder outreach and engagement, which again, to hit it over the head with a big hammer, that's really what today was about, to initiate that process. And so, you know, as you saw those example projects, and by the way, those were just meant to kind of share with you and kind of warm up the brain. What kind of things are we talking about in this plan? And there could be lots of different kinds of projects, very different than the ones we showed, but those were just kind of example projects, anything from plantings and restoration, or maybe physical changing to daylight a creek, or capturing stormwater. These are all great ideas. And there's lots of other ideas, and they could be in a creek, they could be up in an upland area. There's lots of ways to help the health of watershed. So, you know, let us know if you have ideas, and we're going to actually probably go to the next slide with that. And the idea here is, well, who do you talk to, and who should you reach out to? And we're working as a group here. We're an integrated group here between the flood control and public works agency on the county side, the Watershed Council that Bob's representing, and the Contra Costa Resource Conservation District that Lisa's representing, and then some consultant support here from myself and Emma. So I would say if you already have an existing relationship or contact with the folks who are shown on this slide, feel free to reach out to them. That's always the best because you already know them. If not, feel free to send ideas my way. That's fine. And we will all make sure that everyone sees these ideas together. So don't hesitate to reach out. And these contact points will also be in the notes of these slides that will be available for folks. So you'll be able to see this again. And next slide, please. And just a few words about some upcoming meetings that we have coming along. In just 2 weeks, we're going to be reaching out to the public more broadly, just kind of an open public forum in evening meeting, similar to this meeting, but perhaps a little bit more background on Watershed and how watersheds work. But otherwise, similar idea is to reach the public, and there's a lot of good ideas out there. And I think one of the things Bob mentioned was private landowners. And sometimes there are opportunities out there that we're just not familiar with. And so we hope to cast the net wide and hopefully catch some of those good ideas. And then the next bullets there focus it back now onto the creek stewardships groups that Bob introduced around the map of the watershed. They'll each be having their own individual meetings, and we'll be speaking with them about their ideas. And so you could see those kind of through end of February into March. Some of the details of these meetings are still working out here, the Friends of Pleasant Hill Creeks and Friends of the Creeks. So stay tuned. And you can see updates about these meeting times, I think, Bob, either at the stewardship group or the Watershed Council website, or perhaps even the RCD website. There's lots of ways to find out more information. And with that, I'm going to turn it over. Next slide, please. Back to Bob or to Tim.
I think it's to me. And first, I want to just follow up on a couple things for the February 7th meeting. That is a different format that's actually going to be hosted by the Contra Costa County Library. So and it requires pre-registration. So if you wish to participate in that, you have to go to CCCLIB for Contra Costa County Library.org to their events page. You put in February 7th and then scroll down to the time, and then you can register for that. That's the only way that you will get the Zoom link for that particular meeting. They have a huge capacity, so don't worry about overfilling that particular capacity. We wanted to take about a half hour for a presentation, then leave some time for questions and answers. I will just add a couple other things. First of all, to thank you very much for your time and your participation in the polls. And like Ken, I was really pleased to see that everybody wanted to go on a tour of some restoration sites. And that's actually how I learn a lot more than what you can show in a slideshow or anything like that. The second point is I'm going to try and suggest to you why this is important to you. And that is, literally when I said for the last 5 years, the water board has been referring people to the council, have been referring them to me. They're looking at this process as creating a portfolio of projects whereby they can send entities to that site and have them go through that searching process. But there's another thing about it and that is, I think in, let's just say 3 to 5, well, first of all, I think the plan that we're creating is going to guide restoration activities in the watershed for the next 20 or 30 years. It's that potentially significant. The other side of that, though, for each of you that may need off-site mitigation, is at some stage, I think the water board will, when you come to them and say, we need mitigation, they'll say, well, take a look at these projects. You may have your own special site, but they may be saying, well, why is your site not on this list? So I think there's a real advantage to those that potentially need offsite mitigation to suggest to us and to suggest those sites up to us so that we can have them listed in the plan. Because I think that's really important going forward. It's also important to just show people how much mitigation opportunity there is. Now, I think we have at least one question in that's come in. Am I right on that? Or not?
So we have more of a comment from Elise, and it's just sort of mentioning that if there's work or projects done within San Ramon, that they can help with getting volunteers or hosting in-person meetings, which is very helpful.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions. If anybody has questions, please feel free to either type them in the chat, or if at this time, since we have some time left, if you want to go ahead and raise your hand, I think that works too.
So maybe I'll ask the question is what would you have liked to hear today that you didn't hear? Is there anything that we should this is sort of asking for a review, because as Ken and others said, this is our first effort to do outreach at this scale, and you could tell from the list of meetings that we had a number of others. So if you feel like you just want to put something in the chat, or you want to raise your hand and make a comment, or you just want to send us an email later, you can do that. But you know, from my perspective as a representative of the advocacy group, we'd like you to be as excited about what's the future is going to be for the watershed restoration as we are.
All right, we just got a question. It is from JP Galvin. Are there areas that are ID'd that are a higher priority for restoration than others with regard to species, habitat, etc.?
So we haven't yet identified that. That's part of this process. Now, what we're doing right now, this winter and spring, is we're identifying potential sites. And I think as we look at things, it sort of comes pretty clear what's of greater value or not. And I realize there may be a second question that you're asking. But then later this summer and fall, after we've had a chance to look at some sites on the ground as well, we'll go through a prioritization process and identify high priority, medium priority, and then we won't actually identify low priority, but those that don't meet the high and medium will obviously be a lower priority. And then the other question that may be implicit in what you're asking, a couple others may be able to answer or give a better answer than me on this, is we're looking at a variety of objectives from habitat restoration, reducing sedimentation in places where that's possible, fish passage, fish survival. We would like to bring in an information component when we can. One of the nice things about the rain garden is there's a lot of information there, and it's a good place to bring kids so that they can learn a little bit about it. And so I don't want to communicate that there's only one or two things that's going to drive or cause something to be higher value than lower. We haven't talked about wetlands. We've talked about creeks, but not wetlands. Recently, the county recognized that even though there's a lot of wetlands in the county, seasonal wetlands are relatively scarce in the central county, which is the Walnut Creek watershed. And so, we will be looking at potential sites for wetlands together with creek restoration. And, I don't know if somebody else wants to add anything to that.
I think it's just a really good question. Thank you for the question. I think I'll just add that in our conversations so far, we're very much at the beginning of trying to work out exactly how we will prioritize sites. But so far, it's become clear that the ones that tend to rise up in the list are things that have multiple benefits. And I think that is something that's come through so far. And those benefits, like Bob was saying, maybe to certain species or to people. And so I think that, we'd love for you to be part of that conversation.
Another related question that came in from Ave is, I think you started answering that, Lisa, but what other benefits will there be aside from mitigation opportunities? Is there somebody that wants to take that one on?
Well, maybe I'll start and maybe someone else will come in and support a little bit. Hi, Ave. Thank you for the question. I think Lisa described some of these issues on the role of partnership slide. I guess for individual agencies who may be on the call today or representing, yeah, the mitigation is kind of like, what do you get out of it? You might have a need for a mitigation opportunity, but this is bigger than that. That certainly is an important part of this and can help drive the initial needs. But this is really so when I say benefits here, I think this is really a much more larger collective kind of benefit, and that it helps people understand what could be happening across the watershed. We tend to know what we're working on very well. We may not always know kind of what the whole universe of work or projects are. And I don't mean universe here, but just kind of across the watershed is still a large area. So this kind of plan will hopefully help integrate people, inform people, create some contacts and some networking and some great exchanges of ideas. I mean, just in putting this little PowerPoint together, I can tell you there's been great integration from the council to the RCD to the county side, putting all this together, working together collaboratively. And I think that's kind of the vision for the overall plan, is that this should be a resource planning tool for the betterment of the entire watershed and not perhaps just one angle or perspective. And I think that actually leads into the question for Megan down below, which is, hey, would projects that are more about, awareness, advocacy, and educational, would that be relevant to your needs? Now, I don't want to speak on behalf of the whole group, but from my perspective, yes, that's a big yes. I think those are important, and not only tearing up concrete in a parking lot and daylighting it in creek, but educating and informing people about why that is important to do in the first place is really important. So I thought I'd just start with that, but I can turn over to other folks to add on to those two questions.
Nothing else to add to that. We did have a couple other questions come in. One of them is about Newhall Park. Can you talk about the project in Newhall Park and how it meets many of the goals talked about today?
Sure. As it turns out, some of you may be familiar or have been to the place that generated this particular restoration project, which was the first one that we were involved as a council. I talked about 2019, but actually back in 2014, I was contacted to help identify a offsite mitigation for the expansion of Broadway Plaza, which was expanding a store over a lot longer section of the creek. And that particular place, it's San Ramon Creek. Just anyhow. And we spent a full year trying to identify where it should be, and looked at 5 different sites at that time. And the ultimate site was selected was Newhall Park, Galindo Creek in Newhall Park, and WRA is the contractor. You may wonder why 2013, 2023 rather, apologize, is the first year that they broke ground, in a sense. They started to do the actual restoration. And that's just indicative of sometimes how long this process takes from idea to reality. They're done with the basic construction. They've done the tree planting. The particular site, there's a long stretch of Galindo Creek in Newhall Park, and the particular site was really influenced by the opinions of the water board, who wanted certain things achieved in response to the amount of mitigation needed. I will add one other thing. When the water board seeks mitigation, they not only seek mitigation for the actual impacts, they seek it for the temporal impacts. They like the mitigation to occur about the same time as the project, as the impact occurs. And the longer that period of time is, the greater the amount of mitigation that is needed. And so one of the other goals of this particular process is to encourage entities that need mitigation, that know they are going to need mitigation, to start planning for the need for mitigation shortly after they think they need to do the project, not when they have approved the CEQA documents, but when they think they need to do the project, so that that can actually reduce your total mitigation offsite mitigation obligation. Of course, the water board prefers, as Claudia was saying earlier, that you do on-site mitigation, but you know, we're here to just in this whole process to help out for the off-site mitigation, but also to just fundamentally create a healthier watershed.
I don't see any other questions in the chat. We have some nice comments here about how folks can help out. But as far as actual questions, I think we've reached the end, unless anybody has any additional questions that they would like to raise.
Emma, I was just going to say it may be useful just to read some of these comments aloud because they're valuable.
Yeah, that sounds good. So one of them is from Sarah from NOAA Fisheries. And basically she's discussing the salmonid recovery plans. She says she does not know of specific sites offhand, but can help refer to passages for fish habitat.
Great. Thanks, Sarah.
For Friends of Pleasant Hill Creeks, this is from Heather Rossmarin. Improving habitat for species is a key goal and potential benefit of the process, which I think is great. And then we have a comment from Katie Hart, who mentions the multi-benefit aspect of providing treatment of stormwater runoff from existing impervious surfaces in combination with near creek enhancements is desirable. Yeah, and that identifying potential restoration and enhancement sites, and also helping to connect the various entities and communities around creeks and wetlands.
Thanks, Katie, and thanks everyone for posting questions or comments. I know sometimes people are a little shy or don't feel nervous putting stuff like out there, but we're all friends here, so thanks for the comments. And I want everyone to make sure that you feel like you can reach out to us at any time to give us ideas. So thanks a lot.
Awesome. Oh, we actually have one more as well. I'm curious to know more about the restoration project at Pacheco Marsh.
Tim or Claudia, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I can jump in real quick. So yeah, we periodically have tours of that, but for more immediate information, it's just easy to go to the website. And I think you can just Google Lower Walnut Creek Restoration, and that's the easiest way to find it. Or if you Google Pacheco Marsh Restoration, that might also come up. Either one should find it.
Okay. Well, I think we'll just sort of conclude this with a final thank you to everyone that participated today, and we anticipate reaching out again after we complete this next round of outreach and after we had a chance to analyze and evaluate some of the sites that we have listed already. So we'll be in touch.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for your participation.